Let's talk about some waiver wire ads and stashes for week 5. First on my list, Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson caught 7 passes for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns yesterday against the 49ers. And over the last few weeks, he's really solidified his role as the number 2 pass catcher in Arizona. He's either had 55 yards or a touchdown during that time span. And this week he gets the Bengals, who have looked lost this year. And I think with the way Joshua Dobbs has played and the Cardinals hanging tight in every game, there should be a really good chance that Wilson can continue to produce. He's only rostered in 2% of leagues, so if you're looking for a WR3 with upside, I would definitely give him a look. Next on my list, Jaleel McLaughlin. McLaughlin stepped in for an injured Javonte Williams yesterday and had 7 carries for 72 yards and also caught 3 passes for 32 yards and a touchdown. And he looked really electric. I think he's shown enough to earn work moving forward. Javonte Williams strained a hip flexor, but apparently it's not so serious to where he's going to miss any time. And if he's on the field this week, I would expect all 3 backs in Denver to get work. The Broncos gave Samaje Perine a 2-year, $7.5 million deal, so he's pretty much locked into some type of role, and if Williams can go, he'll definitely get some work as well. This week they get the Jets, and the Jets look pretty lackluster on defense for the first time against Kansas City this past weekend, so I have to think Denver's going to attack them on the ground just the way they've attacked most teams. He's only rostered in 3% of leagues, so if you're looking for an RB3 with low-end RB2 upside, McLaughlin is definitely someone to give a look at. Next up, Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's value is really contingent on T. Higgins' health. Higgins fractured a rib yesterday, and apparently it's going to come down to a pain tolerance issue. If Higgins can fight through it and suit up, we'll probably look at 1 or 2 versions of him. The one that's a decoy, or the guy that plays his normal role. I think that's why you have to add Boyd and kind of have a wait-and-see approach. If Higgins is truly hampered by the injury, then Boyd's role could grow. But if Higgins shows no ill effects from the injury, then you probably want to drop him or keep him at the end of your bench as a stash. For this week, I would definitely not start him, but I would add him as a speculative add. Next up, Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet caught 7 of 9 passes yesterday for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that's what makes him so frustrating to own. He's definitely capable of games like this, but they seem to be far and few between. With the Bears looking like they had some life in them yesterday, the hope is they can carry that momentum into Thursday night against Washington. At this point, he's more of a depth play. I would not rely on him as a weekly starter, but if the Bears can string together a few decent offensive performances, then he may have some consistent value. He's already rostered in 53% of leagues, so he may or may not be available in yours. Staying with tight ends, I know Kyle Pitts owners don't want to hear this, but Jonnu Smith has averaged just under 7 targets a game. He had 6 receptions for 95 yards yesterday to lead all pass catchers in Atlanta. And believe it or not, since week 2, he's actually been a top 10 tight end in PPR leagues. If you're looking for a tight end that's locked into a decent amount of volume, then I think you might have to give him some consideration. He seems to be one of Desmond Ridder's favorite targets, and as long as Ridder can keep the job in Atlanta, I have to think that Smith's going to continue to have some value. Now let's talk about some stashes. First up, Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams had his suspension reduced because the NFL revised their gambling policy for first-time offenders. He's actually already been reinstated, and the Lions have been looking for a true number 2 pass catcher behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. Josh Reynolds has been admirable, but I think they definitely want a game buster, and Jameson Williams provides that type of ability. They used a first-round pick on him, and I think they're anxious to get him on the field. I have to think Ben Johnson's going to find a way to get him integrated quickly, and with the way they score points, it would not be surprising to see him have a pretty consistent role once he gets his feet under him. Next, Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett's been pretty lackluster up until this point. Even yesterday, he only had 2 catches for 9 yards. But with Donald Parham going down with a wrist injury, I think he's set to see an increased workload. The only other tight end behind him is Stone Smart, and Gerald Everett proved that he's capable last year. Up until now, Parham has been the leading tight end scorer for this team. He already has 3 on the year, so those red zone looks have to go somewhere. And I think with the connection he established with Justin Herbert last year, it would not be shocking to see Gerald Everett step into that role. Herbert is dealing with an injury of his own, hurting his hand yesterday, but with the Chargers on bye in week 5, the hope is that he heals up and that he's no worse for the wear going into week 6. Next up, Cade Otton. Cade Otton was already a pretty good stash in my mind just due to the number of snaps he plays at tight end for this team. But with Mike Evans going down with a hamstring injury, he may see an increased role in the red zone. Evans was apparently going to return in the second half, but the Buccaneers held him out. That's probably because they have a bye in week 5 and they just want to get him an extra week of rest. But if the injury is more serious and Evans isn't able to go coming out of the bye, then Otton is someone to give a look at. He's definitely been on the field plenty, and Baker Mayfield does look his way. He's definitely locked into about 4 to 5 targets a game, and that could increase if Evans misses a substantial amount of time. But also give Trey Palmer some consideration. Palmer scored 2 touchdowns already this year, and while his volume has been low, all of his looks have been high-value ones, and I have to think he's going to get some red zone work as well should Evans miss time. Lastly, Darnell Washington. Pat Frymuth went down yesterday with a hamstring injury, and I think Washington should get some looks, especially in the red zone moving forward, should Frymuth miss some time. At this point, Washington's been used dominantly as a blocker, but with how thin the Steelers have been at pass catchers, I have to think that Washington's going to get a chance to produce, especially in the red zone. Those are my top waiver wire ads for week 5. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know your thoughts on week 5 in the comments below.